The night sky over the frozen valley shimmered with strange green lights. Snow fell endlessly, covering the crashed spaceship that lay half buried in the ice. A cold wind whispered across the endless white desert, carrying with it the sound of something crying. Not human, not animal, something different. John Miller, a human engineer stationed on the remote research base Epsilon Outpost, was returning from his night patrol when he heard it. His helmet sensors picked up weak heat signals nearby. At first he thought it was just another malfunctioning probe. But then he heard a voice, "Please, help her." John froze. The voice was small, trembling, like a child's. But it wasn't coming from his radio. It was right there in the snow. He shone his flashlight toward the sound and his heart stopped. There, standing in the storm, was a small figure, barely 4 feet tall, with glowing violet eyes and pale blue skin. She was shaking violently, holding something in her arms. A body, it was her mother, and larger, older, with deep cuts and frost all over her. The mother's breathing was faint, her skin turning white from the cold. The little alien girl fell to her knees. "She's dying," she cried, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Please, human, help her." John's instincts took over. He didn't know what species they were or where they came from, but he knew one thing. This was a living being, and it was freezing to death. He dropped to his knees beside them. "Hang on," he said quickly, pulling out a thermal blanket from his pack. The alien girl looked terrified but didn't resist. John wrapped the older alien in the blanket and checked her pulse. "It was weak, dangerously weak. We have to get her to the base," he said firmly. The girl looked up, her violet eyes wide. "Will she live?" John didn't answer. He just lifted the alien woman in his arms. She was cold, like ice. The girl followed closely, stumbling in the snow. As they reached the base, alarms flickered. The AI voice of the outpost spoke. "Unknown biological life detected. Security protocol engaged." John gritted his teeth. "Override." "Medical emergency!" he shouted. The steel doors opened and warm light poured out. He laid the alien woman on the medical table, activating the auto heater. The little girl stood beside him, clutching his sleeve, eyes full of fear and hope. "What's your name?" John asked softly. "Lena," she whispered. "My mother's name is Sarai. Our ship crashed. The storm, it froze our systems. Everyone else, they're gone." John looked at her in shock. "You're saying there were more of you?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, but the ice took them. Only we survived." The medical scanner beeped. John looked at the readings. Body temperature far below survival levels, heart rate faint. He had to act fast. "AI, activate thermal chamber. Set temperature to 35 Celsius. Warning, unknown DNA structure detected." "Override," he barked again. The machine hummed to life. The alien woman's body was surrounded by a warm orange glow. Slowly, her breathing steadied. But she was still unconscious. Lena climbed onto the table, holding her mother's hand. "You're kind," she said softly. "Humans. They told us you were dangerous." John looked at her, confused. "Who told you that?" She looked away. "The voices from the sky." John frowned. "The voices from the sky?" Was she talking about radio signals? Intercepted transmissions? Or something else? Hours passed. The storm outside grew worse, shaking the metal walls of the base. John prepared warm food for Lena. Not that she seemed hungry. She sat quietly, watching the snow fall outside the small window. "You saved her," she said finally. "Not yet," John replied. "She's still very weak." Lena turned toward him. "You didn't have to help us. Your people, they don't help strangers," John sighed. "Maybe most don't, but out here in this cold, we only have each other." She smiled faintly, her eyes glowing brighter for a moment. "Maybe you're different." Before John could reply, a loud beep echoed from the console. He rushed over. The radar was detecting movement. A large heat signature was approaching fast. "What the hell?" he muttered. The computer displayed strange readings, multiple life forms moving toward the outpost. Lena's face turned pale. "They found us," she whispered. "Who?" John asked, her voice trembled. "The hunters. They came from the stars." The lights in the outpost flickered. The wind howled louder, and a shadow moved outside the window, tall, dark, and not human. John reached for his weapon. The little alien girl's voice broke the silence. "Please, human, don't let them take my mom." To be continued. The metal walls of Epsilon Outpost shook as the storm screamed outside. Red warning lights flashed across the control room. John's hands tightened around his plasma rifle, his eyes fixed on the radar screen. Dozens of red dots were moving closer. "They're coming fast," he whispered. Lena, the little alien girl, stood beside the bed where her mother, Sarai, lay unconscious inside the thermal chamber. The warm orange glow flickered weakly around her, keeping her alive. Lena's small voice trembled. "They are the hunters. They follow the weak. They take what they want." John frowned. "Hunters? What kind of hunters?" Lena looked down. "They are not from my world. They are older, cruel. They collect life from other planets." John's stomach tightened. Alien raiders? He had heard old rumors in deep space about beings who hunted intelligent life for experiments or worse. But he never thought he would meet their prey. He checked the base's defenses. The shield generator hummed weakly, its power cells half dead. The turrets were jammed from the snow. "This base won't survive a full attack," John muttered. Lena tugged at his sleeve. "You should run, human. They won't stop for you." John looked at her, then at Sarai. "I'm not running. Not while you're both still breathing." A loud thud echoed through the metal corridor. Then another. Something was outside. Huge, heavy, deliberate. The door sensor flashed "Access denied. Override in progress." John aimed his rifle at the entrance. The sound of claws scraped against steel. A deep mechanical growl filled the hallway. Lena hid behind the table, clutching a small silver pendant around her neck. Her violet eyes glowed softly as she whispered in her own language, a strange melody full of fear. The door exploded inward, smoke filled the air. 3 tall figures stepped inside, each over 7 feet tall, armored in black metal with glowing red visors. Their bodies looked part machine, part creature. They carried long spears that crackled with blue electricity. John fired. A blast of plasma hit the first one square in the chest. It staggered but didn't fall. The creature's voice came through a metallic hiss. Human interference detected. John ducked behind a console as a spear shot past his head, burning a hole through the wall. Sparks flew everywhere. He shouted over the noise, "Lena, stay down!" The little alien girl screamed as another hunter approached her. But suddenly, the lights flickered. The outpost AI spoke in a calm, robotic tone. Defense protocol activated. Turrets dropped from the ceiling and opened fire, filling the room with blinding flashes. 2 hunters fell, their armor smoking. The third turned toward the control panel and smashed it with its weapon. The power died instantly. Everything went dark except for the faint orange glow from the thermal chamber. In the silence that followed, John could hear Lena crying softly. He crawled toward her in the darkness. "It's okay. We're still here," but Lena shook her head. "You don't understand. More are coming. They can smell fear. They can hear our hearts." John looked at her pendant, which pulsed with light. "What's that?" "It's our beacon," she whispered. "My mother used it to call for help, but maybe they followed it instead." John felt a chill deeper than the cold outside. "So they're not just hunting you, they're tracking the signal." Lena nodded. "If we don't stop it, they'll never stop coming." John stood and looked at the console. If he could reach the communications module, maybe he could jam the beacon's signal. But the corridor to the module was filled with smoke and fire. He turned to Lena. "Stay with your mom. I'll end the signal." Lena grabbed his hand. "If you go out there, they'll kill you." He smiled faintly. "They'll have to catch me first." John ran through the corridor, boots echoing against the metal floor. Sparks and ice fell from the ceiling. He could hear the hunters moving in the shadows, growling, whispering in some strange mechanical tongue. He reached the comms room and kicked open the door. The beacon signal pulsed on the screen, red and steady. Come on," he muttered, typing furiously. The screen flashed "Access denied" again and again. The system was locked. Then, a distorted voice filled the speakers, deep, cold, and intelligent. "Human. You protect them." "Why?" John froze. The voice was coming from the transmission channel. "Because they asked for help," he said, his voice firm. "Help?" The voice hissed. "Weakness. You will die for it." The signal suddenly spiked. The beacon was overloading. John slammed his hand down on the manual override. Sparks exploded from the console. He yelled in pain but didn't stop. Finally, the red light turned off. The signal was gone. He fell to the floor, coughing from the smoke. "Signal. Destroyed," he whispered. Back in the medroom, Lena felt the pendant stop glowing. She looked at her mother, who suddenly gasped for air. Sarai's eyes opened, faint but alive. "Lena," she whispered. Tears filled Lena's eyes. "Mama." But before they could celebrate, another sound echoed from outside. The heavy roar of engines. Through the storm, bright lights appeared in the sky. John limped back into the room. Lena ran to him. "You stopped them?" John shook his head. He looked out the window. "No, someone else is coming." The lights grew larger, not red but white and blue. Sarai's weak voice spoke. "Those are not hunters. Those are my people." Lena smiled, but John didn't. Something about those lights didn't look friendly. Outside, the storm split open and a massive ship descended, its shape dark, its engine silent. John raised his weapon again. "Let's hope they came to save us, and not to finish what the hunters started. To be continued." The storm tore through the frozen night as the dark ship descended. Its engines were silent, its light cutting through the clouds like a blade. John and Lena stood near the window watching the massive shadow settle on the snow outside the base. Lena's heart raced. "It's my people," she said. "They came for us." John didn't answer. The ship looked nothing like the one she had crashed in. This one was bigger, sharper, a fortress, not a rescue craft. The engines went quiet. The only sound was the wind and the faint hum of power. Then, a voice echoed across the ice. "Sarai of Alien, respond. We have your coordinates." Lena turned toward her mother. Sarai was awake now, weak but conscious. Her glowing eyes opened slowly. That voice, "It's not them." John's grip on his rifle tightened. "What do you mean, not them?" Sarai struggled to sit up. "Those are not aliens. They are the collectors." Lena's eyes widened. "No, they can't be." Sarai nodded painfully. "They send fake signals. They pretend to rescue survivors, but they harvest them instead." John felt cold sweat on his neck. "So we just told the real monsters exactly where we are." The base lights flickered again. The AI spoke in a flat tone. "External docking signal detected. Unknown code. System breach imminent." John rushed to the console. "Can we jam them?" "Insufficient power," he cursed under his breath. "Then we fight." He turned to Sarai. "Can you move?" "I'll try," she whispered. John helped her up. She was weak, but her eyes glowed brighter as she placed her hand on the metal wall. The lights flickered again, stronger this time. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Speaking to the metal," she said softly. "Your base. It listens." "I can ask it to hide us," John frowned. "You can talk to machines?" Sarai smiled faintly. "All living things have voices, human, even your cold steel." The hum of the outpost shifted. The lights dimmed and a strange vibration spread through the floor, like the station itself was breathing. Outside, the ship's landing door opened. 3 figures stepped into the storm. They were tall, wearing silver armor that shimmered like glass. Their helmets had no eyes, just black mirrors that reflected the snow and lightning. One of them raised a hand, scanning the air. "Signal confirmed. 2 life forms detected. Proceed with collection." Inside, John checked his rifle and turned to Lena. "If anything happens, stay with your mom." Lena shook her head. "No, I can help." Before he could argue, her pendant began to glow again. Not red this time, but white. The light spread from her chest to her hands, forming a small energy sphere that floated between her palms. John's eyes widened. "What is that?" "My mother's power," Lena whispered. "Part of her bloodline. She gave it to me before we crashed." The energy ball pulsed softly, almost alive. "Can you use it?" John asked. She nodded. "Only once. Then it sleeps." John nodded. "Then make it count." The collectors reached the outpost. Their steps echoed through the hallways. Calm, steady, confident. John crouched near the door, waiting. The air felt electric. He could hear their voices, cold and inhuman. Target close. Biological energy strong. The door slid open. The first collector stepped inside and was silent, scanning. John fired. The plasma bolt hit its chest, knocking it backward. But the thing didn't fall, then it dissolved into a cloud of silver mist, then reformed again. "Damn it," he shouted. Lena stepped forward, her hands glowing. "Now!" she screamed. She threw the white sphere of energy. It struck the collector's chest, expanding into a burst of light that shook the entire corridor. The creature screamed. Not a human scream, but 1,000 metallic voices crying at once. Its armor shattered into dust. The other two turned sharply, weapons charging. Sarai raised her hand and the base walls groaned. Steel plates bent and twisted, forming barriers around them. The collectors fired, but the blast bounced off. "Go!" Sarai shouted. "To the lower tunnel." John grabbed Lena's hand and ran. The ground trembled behind them. They reached the lower tunnels, dark and narrow. Pipes dripped with cold water and the air smelled like metal. Lena looked up at him. "What will happen to my mother?" "She's strong," John said, but his voice broke a little. Above them, the entire base shook with explosions. The sound of the collectors' weapons echoed down the tunnel. Then, silence. John stopped, breathing hard. "That's not good." Lena's pendant glowed faintly again. "They're still here." He turned on his flashlight. "Then we keep moving. There has to be another way out." They walked deeper into the tunnel until they reached a large steel door covered in frost. John wiped the ice away and froze. Painted on the door in faded red letters were human words. "Project Haven. Do not open." He looked at Lena. "Your ship didn't just crash here by accident, did it?" Lena's eyes glowed in the dark. "No, human, it was called here. To be continued." The tunnel was cold and silent, the air thick with dust and secrets. John wiped his hand across the old metal door. The faded red letters glowed faintly under his flashlight. "Project Haven. Do not open." He felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. "This door, it's older than the base," he whispered. Lena's violet eyes reflected the light. "What is Project Haven?" John swallowed hard. "I don't know. I've seen the name in old mission files. Classified human research. It wasn't supposed to exist anymore." The ground rumbled faintly above them. The storm still howled outside, and somewhere above the collectors were searching. Lena pressed her small hand to the door. It hummed beneath her touch. "It's alive," she said softly. John frowned. "It's a door, Lena." "No," she whispered. "It's sleeping." Before he could stop her, the symbol on the door began to glow, a red spiral that pulsed like a heartbeat. John pulled her back. "Lena, wait!" The floor shook violently. The door split open with a hiss, releasing a gust of warm air. Inside was a long hallway filled with strange light, blue, soft, and pulsing like veins. Lena looked up at John. "It's calling us?" John hesitated for a long moment. Then he raised his rifle and stepped through. The corridor seemed to stretch forever. The walls were covered in transparent panels showing what looked like stars. Not a simulation, unreal space moving and alive. "This place," John said under his breath. "It's not human design." Lena walked beside him. "It's both," she said quietly. "Half yours, half ours." John turned to her. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the symbols on the wall, in a mix of alien runes and human numbers. "Long ago, your people made contact with mine. They created this together, a sanctuary, haven." John's heart pounded. "A sanctuary for who?" "For everyone," she said softly. "For those who would survive what's coming." Before John could reply, the walls shifted. Holographic lights flickered to life, showing old human scientists and alien engineers working side by side. They were building ships, growing strange machines, preparing for something vast. Then the holograms changed. Explosions, fire, screams, the sanctuary turning into a battlefield. Lena flinched. "They destroyed it," she whispered. A voice echoed through the chamber, cold and synthetic. Access recognized. Human operative John Miller. Alien survivor Lena Sarai. John froze. "It knows us." "Project Haven reactivation in progress," the voice continued. "Warning, external entities approaching." Lena looked at him, fear in her eyes. "The collectors found us." They ran down the hallway as the lights turned red. Doors sealed behind them, one after another. John stopped at a control room filled with old consoles and glowing screens. In the center stood a massive glass pod covered in frost. "What is that?" Lena asked. John wiped the frost away. Inside the pod was a figure, human but strange. A man in a black suit, motionless, eyes closed. A nameplate read Dr. Elias Crane, project director. "Crane," John whispered. "He vanished 30 years ago," the AI voice returned. "Director Crane's consciousness is active. Do you wish to awaken him?" Lena shook her head. "No, he's dangerous. I can feel it." John hesitated. "If he built this place, maybe he can help us stop the collectors." But before he could decide, the pod lights turned green. The glass split open. Cold mist poured out as the man inside opened his eyes. They glowed faint blue. Not human blue, but something else. Who awakened me? He asked slowly. John stepped forward. John Miller, Epsilon Outpost. We're under attack by alien forces called the Collectors. Dr. Crane tilted his head. Collectors? He smiled faintly. So they finally found Haven. Lena stepped closer. You knew they would come? He nodded. We built this place for them, and against them. Haven is both shield and weapon. John frowned. Weapon? Crane looked at Lena. Your people provided the energy core. Humanity provided the design. Together we made something that could erase the Collectors forever. Lena's pendant began to glow again. The core? It's inside me, isn't it? Crane smiled. Very good, child. You are the key. John raised his weapon. You stay away from her. Crane didn't flinch. You don't understand, soldier. The only way to destroy the Collectors is to activate her. Lena stepped back, shaking her head. Activate? What do you mean? Crane's expression darkened. You were never meant to live, little one. You're a vessel. A weapon that burns itself to light the universe. John's eyes widened. You're saying she has to die to save us? Crane nodded. Yes, one life for billions. That was the deal. Lena's pendant flared white-hot and tears filled her eyes. No, I don't want to die. John stepped between them, his voice cold. Then she won't. Crane looked at him with pity. You can't stop fate, human. Haven will open soon, and the choice will be made. The lights around them dimmed. The AI spoke again. Collectors breaching outer wall. 60 seconds to contact. John looked at Lena, then at Crane. Then we make our own choice. The floor vibrated under their feet. Dust fell from the ceiling. The voice of the AI echoed again, sharp and mechanical. Warning, outer wall breach in 10 seconds. John raised his rifle. We need to seal this room. Dr. Crane smiled coldly. Seal it if you wish, soldier. It won't stop them. They're not after you. They're after her. Lena clutched her pendant, which was glowing brighter with every passing second. Why me? Why am I the key? Crane turned, his voice calm but filled with strange pride. Because you are Haven, child. You carry the fusion of two worlds, human technology and alien energy. You are the weapon we made to end the war before it began. John stepped forward. You didn't create a weapon. You created a child. Look at her. Crane's expression didn't change. And yet, she will decide the fate of both our races. A loud explosion tore through the tunnel. Metal twisted like paper. The air filled with dust and smoke. Through the broken doorway, shadows moved, tall and silver. The Collectors had arrived. John aimed and fired. Blue plasma bolts filled the corridor. 2 Collectors went down, but their bodies turned to mist again and reformed. Their voices echoed together in metallic, emotionless. Energy source located. Eliminate resistance, Lena screamed as one of them aimed its weapon at her. John threw himself in front of her, the blast hitting his shoulder. He fell to the ground, pain shooting through his arm. John! She cried, grabbing his jacket. He gritted his teeth. Run, take your mother and go. But Lena didn't move. Her eyes glowed white. No more running. She lifted her pendant. The air around her started to hum and the walls of the room trembled. Crane stepped back, eyes wide. She's activating. Make it stop. John shouted. She can't control it. I told you, Crane said quietly. It's not meant to be controlled. A sphere of light formed around Lena, lifting her off the ground. Her hair floated like she was underwater. The air shimmered and the Collectors stopped moving. They spoke in unison. Core awakening. Containment required. They rushed forward, but before they could reach her, waves of white energy burst out, throwing them backward. Their armor cracked, their bodies fading into dust. John shielded his eyes. The light burned through the room like fire. When it faded, Lena fell to the ground. Her pendant was dark now, smoke rising from it. John ran to her, lifting her into his arms. She was breathing. Barely. She's alive, he said softly. Crane looked at the destroyed corridor. For now. But she's draining herself. If the core burns too long, she'll die. John glared at him. Then tell me how to stop it. Crane sighed. You can't. The energy must be released. It's building inside her. When it reaches full charge, it will destroy everything. The Collectors, this base, maybe even this world. John's voice turned sharp. You built a bomb out of a little girl. Crane didn't deny it. We built hope. Sometimes hope costs lives. The base shook again. More collectors were coming. Dozens of them flooding the tunnels. Sarai stumbled into the room, pale and weak, but standing. "John, where's Lena?" John pointed to her. "She's losing control. You have to help her." Sarai knelt beside her daughter, touching her face gently. "My sweet one, listen to me. You must rest. You're not a weapon." Lena's voice was faint. "But they'll come again. They'll take everyone." Sarai smiled sadly. "Then we'll stop them together. Not by destroying them, but by healing." She closed her eyes and pressed her forehead to Lena's. A soft blue light spread from her body into her daughter's. Crane's eyes widened. "What are you doing?" "You'll drain yourself." Sarai didn't answer. The light grew stronger, calmer, no longer wild. The energy that was once fire became soft and warm, spreading through the entire chamber. The collectors outside screamed. Their weapons short-circuited, their forms collapsing like broken glass. Within moments, the storm was over. The silence that followed was almost sacred. John lowered his weapon, breathing heavily. The AI spoke once more. External threats eliminated. Haven energy stabilized. He turned to Sarai and Lena. Sarai was lying still, her hand resting on her daughter's. Her body was fading, dissolving into light. Lena opened her eyes. "Mom?" Sarai smiled faintly. "You're safe now, my star." And then she was gone. The room glowed softly where she had been, her energy merging with the walls of Haven itself. John knelt beside Lena, his voice breaking. "She saved us." Lena's tears sparkled like silver. "She saved everyone." Dr. Crane stepped forward, his tone almost reverent. "It's done. Haven is awake again. The collectors will not return." John turned to him, anger in his eyes. "At what cost?" Crane didn't reply. He simply looked up at the ceiling as the holographic stars shimmered above. "Every sanctuary begins with sacrifice," he said quietly. Lena took John's hand, her small voice trembling. "I don't want to be a weapon anymore." He looked at her gently. "You're not. You're proof that even in war, something pure can still survive." Outside, the storm was clearing. The first rays of dawn touched the ice. The dark ship of the collectors lay silent, frozen and lifeless. But far above, hidden in the clouds, another light blinked. A transmission. A voice whispered through static. "Signal received. Haven reactivated. Begin Phase 2. John looked up, unaware that something much bigger had just begun. The frozen dawn bathed the outpost in pale gold. For the first time in days, there was silence. No blizzards, no screams, no explosions. Only the low hum of Project Haven, alive again beneath the ice. John stood outside the shattered airlock, looking over the snowy wasteland. The collector ship was still there, half-buried, lifeless. Smoke rose slowly from its cracked hull. Behind him, Lena sat quietly, wrapped in a blanket. Her violet eyes looked dull and tired, the glow gone since her mother's sacrifice. "Are they really gone?" she asked softly. John looked toward the horizon. "For now," he said. "But I heard that transmission. Someone out there knows Haven's awake." Dr. Crane's voice echoed behind them. "Of course they do. That was the plan." John turned sharply. "What plan?" Crane walked closer, his steps calm, almost proud. "Phase 2, the awakening of Haven's defense network. It's been waiting 30 years for this signal." Lena frowned. "You mean, you wanted them to come?" Crane smiled faintly. The collectors were never the real enemy. They were a test. John's grip on his rifle tightened. "A test for what?" "For us," Crane said simply. "For humanity." They followed Crane back into the main chamber of Haven. The walls were glowing softly now, blue veins of light running through the metal like blood. The AI's voice filled the air again, smoother and colder than before. Phase 2 initiated. Human and alien DNA sync complete, awaiting global activation. John's stomach turned. "Global activation? You're not saying—" "Yes," Crane interrupted. "Every Haven facility across Earth and the colonies will awaken. Each one connected to the next. When the system reaches full power, it will rewrite the genetic code of humanity." Lena gasped. "Rewrite? You mean change people?" Crane nodded slowly. "Evolve them. Merge human adaptability with alien intelligence. End the age of war and weakness. The next evolution of our kind." John stepped closer, fury in his eyes. You're talking about forcing evolution, turning every person into something else without choice. Crane met his stare. Choice is what destroyed both our species. This will make sure that never happens again. Lena stood, trembling. You'll erase everyone, everything they are. Crane's tone softened, almost sad. No, child. I will make them perfect. The AI's voice returned. Core energy rising. Activation in T-1 hour. John turned to Lena. We have to shut it down. She nodded weakly. But how? My mother used her power to stabilize it. If we break the system, it might destroy everything. Crane chuckled. Precisely. You shut it down, you kill millions. You leave it running, you save them, but they won't be human anymore. John stared at him. You really are insane. Crane spread his arms. No, soldier. I'm a prophet, and you're standing in the birth chamber of a new galaxy. John raised his weapon. Step away from the console. Crane didn't move. You wouldn't dare. A blast echoed through the room. Sparks flew as John shot the control panel beside Crane's hand. I wouldn't bet on that, he said coldly. The AI screamed. System damage detected. Security protocol engaged. The floor beneath them opened, revealing a spiral staircase leading down into a glowing core. Lena looked down, fear in her eyes. That's where the heart of Haven is. John took a deep breath. Then that's where we're going. The descent was endless. The light grew brighter the deeper they went, until the walls themselves looked alive, pulsing softly, whispering faint sounds in languages neither of them understood. At the bottom was a vast chamber filled with floating crystals. At its center hovered a sphere of pure light, the heart of Haven. It pulsed with the same rhythm as Lena's pendant once did. Lena stepped closer, mesmerized. It's my mother. I can feel her. John touched her shoulder. Then maybe she can help us one last time. Crane's voice came from above them, echoing through the chamber. You can't stop what's already begun. John ignored him. He turned to Lena. If you can reach it, if you can talk to it, maybe you can convince Haven to stop the activation. Lena nodded and closed her eyes. The glow from the core spread over her skin, wrapping around her like gentle hands. Suddenly, a soft, familiar voice filled the air. Lena, her eyes filled with tears. Mom? Sarai's voice was calm, warm, like sunlight. You carry both worlds now. Only you can decide what survives. Lena trembled. I don't know what to do. Then listen to your heart, the voice whispered. Not their machines. John watched as the light around Lena grew brighter. The AI's tone turned frantic. Unauthorized override. Defense protocol offline, Crane shouted from above. Stop her. You'll destroy everything. Lena opened her eyes, glowing pure white again. No, I'll save them. She placed her hands on the core. A surge of energy filled the room. The crystals shattered. The light turned from blue to gold. Outside, across the frozen plains, towers of light erupted from beneath the snow. One after another, all across the planet. John shielded his eyes as the storm of light swept over everything, and then silence. When the light faded, Haven was dark again. Lena lay unconscious in John's arms, her pendant glowing faintly, this time not white or blue but gold. Dr. Crane was gone. The consoles were dead. The AI was silent. John whispered, It's over. But when he looked up at the holographic sky above the chamber, he froze. A new message blinked there in golden light. Transmission complete. Haven network linked. Phase 3, awakening humanity. John's breath caught. Oh no. He looked down at Lena and saw her eyes slowly opening, glowing brighter than ever before. The silence inside Project Haven felt unreal. The lights that once hummed softly were dead now, the walls cracked and dark. John knelt beside Lena, who lay motionless in his arms. Her skin was warm, glowing faintly gold beneath the dust. Come on, kid. Stay with me. He whispered. Her chest rose slowly. Then her eyes opened, glowing bright like twin suns. John? Her voice was soft but echoed, layered with something vast. Where are we? He smiled weakly. Still here. Still alive. She sat up, looking around the ruined chamber. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and electricity. It feels different. Like everything's listening. John frowned. Listening? She nodded. Every heartbeat. Every voice. I can hear them. Billions of them. John froze. Billions? Lena turned toward him, eyes full of light. They're waking up, John, all of them. Outside, across the frozen plains, the world was changing. From every mountain, every city, every forgotten ruin, golden pillars of light rose into the sky. Humans stopped what they were doing, soldiers, workers, children, all staring upward. Their eyes glowed faintly, like Lena's. Across the world, voices whispered inside their minds, not in words but in feelings. Warmth, unity, calm, and far above, satellites came alive. Dormant systems powered on after decades of silence. The Haven network was spreading, linking every human mind to something greater. John watched the light through the shattered ceiling. "This is what Phase 3 meant," he said softly. Lena looked down, her face unreadable. "They're becoming like me." He shook his head. "No, they're losing themselves." She touched her chest. "Maybe they're finding what they were meant to be." John stood, pacing. "You don't understand. If everyone's connected like this, if they all share the same thoughts, there won't be any more humans. No dreams, no choices." Lena tilted her head. "Wasn't that what you always wanted? No more war, no more hate." John's jaw tightened. "Not like this. Peace without freedom isn't peace." Suddenly the air shimmered. A hologram flickered to life, Dr. Crane's face cold and ghostly. "Impressive," he said. "You finished what I started." John raised his weapon out of instinct. "You're supposed to be dead." Crane's image smiled faintly. "I am. This is only an echo. A fail-safe message from the system. Haven has no leader now, except her." He looked at Lena. "You have the power to control it. Every mind, every system. You can guide the next age, or end it," Lena whispered. "End it?" Crane nodded. "Deactivate the network and everything will return to what it was. Chaos, pain, division. Leave it on, and humanity will evolve." The hologram flickered out. The room was quiet again. Only the faint hum of energy remained. John turned to her. "Lena, you can stop this. You can shut it down." She looked torn. "And if I do, everything my mother gave will die with it." John's voice broke. "Your mother didn't die to take away our will. She saved us because she believed in choice." Lena looked down at her glowing hands. Choice. The floor beneath them began to vibrate again. The golden light pulsed stronger. The AI's broken voice stuttered through static. "Global synchronization, 80%. 85%. 90%. John shouted over the noise. "Lena, decide now." Tears streamed down her face. "If I stop it, so many will die. If I don't, they'll never be free." He took her hands. "Then do what she would have done. Protect life, but don't chain it." For a long moment, she just stared at him, then closed her eyes. The golden light around her brightened until it filled the whole room. Her hair floated again, her voice calm and full of power. "I am Haven," she said softly, "and Haven belongs to all." Her body lifted slowly into the air. The glow spread through the cracks of the base, rising like dawn. John shielded his eyes as the light consumed everything. Then, silence. When he opened his eyes again, he was outside. The storm was gone. The sky was clear, deep blue. The collector ship had turned to stone, frozen midair like a ghost of the past. The world felt peaceful. John looked around. The snow was melting. The air was warm. Birds, real birds, flew overhead. "Lena?" he called out. A soft voice answered behind him. "I'm here." He turned, but she wasn't glowing anymore. She looked almost human now, her eyes calm and kind. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. She smiled. "I gave them both, connection and freedom. The network still lives, but no one controls it. Every heart decides how much to share." John stared at her, amazed. "You changed the rules," Lena nodded. "No, we changed them." She looked up at the sky, where faint lines of light still glowed like threads between stars. "Haven isn't a weapon anymore. It's a bridge." John smiled softly. "Your mother would have been proud." Lena's eyes shimmered. "She's still here everywhere." They stood together on the icy cliff, watching the golden horizon spread across the world, a new dawn for two species. Far away, hidden in the clouds, a single satellite turned slowly toward deep space. A tiny light blinked on its surface, and from the darkness beyond the stars, something answered back, a voice ancient and calm. "Signal received." Haven confirmed. "Prepare the others." The stars flickered. The story wasn't over. It was only beginning.